Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining me today. As usual, it's Monday, so it's Tati Talks Day. Before I introduce my interviewee today, let me just talk to my Brazilian fellows. Oi, gente. Mais uma segunda-feira, outro dia de Tati Talk. Estou super animada hoje por ter comigo Cathy Mott. A Cathy foi uma pessoa que eu conheci aqui nos Estados Unidos, então fica aqui ligado comigo, eu vou apresentar quem ela é, mas não se acanhe se você tiver que mandar perguntas, mesmo que seja em português. Eu tô ligada aqui, não tem problema se você não estiver deitando no inglês, eu tô aqui para te ajudar. Afinal de contas, a gente aprende aprendendo, a gente aprende participando das coisas. So, you guys, let me tell you how I met these wonderful, wonderful women. I was living here in the US for just a month and a half tops, and I decided to go to a coach event. I decided that was my time, although I was here for such a short period of time, to get to know coaches like me. And then I drove down to the south, very far from my house, without knowing anyone and any place, just going with my guts. And during this event, I met Cathy Mott. She was the first person that I've met here in the US. And she was the first person who gave me a hand. She was there for me, and we were just meeting ourselves, and she was there for me. She introduced me to a lot of people, and then we started a beautiful friendship. So I am very appreciative of this amazing diva, wonderful coach star. And today I am going to give you her to learn from her a lot of things that she is specialized. So I give you now Cathy Mott. Cathy, welcome. I am
I am
so
so
glad.
excited.
Oh man, aren't you heart pounding?
Yes, I just posted on Instagram that I still get butterflies, but they're flying in formation.
Yes, yes. And it's super funny that you have butterflies because I want to introduce you to my community, to my fellow friends. But I want you first to tell us who is Cathy Mott and how can you still have butterflies, my coach star?
Because I'm imperfectly human. But I am happy to share with you this huge thing in leadership training about answering that question, who am I? And not using your job title. So I will tell you who I am at the core, and then I will tell you some of the wonderful things that I've been privileged to do.
Okay.
So, of course, as Tatiana said, my name is Cathy Mott, and I feel like I am a woman with purpose. My personal mission statement is I want people to feel God's love through me. So every interaction I have with people, I want them to feel very special. I'm very passionate about helping people reach their full potential. And my tagline as a life coach is I specialize in introducing people to themselves.
Oh.
So, because I'm living my dream, living my passion, and operating in my natural gifts and talents, I will share with you some of the things I've had the privilege of doing. So, I have, of course, written my first book back in 2019, just a year ago. That was like a dream come true. So excited about that. I am an executive coach. I've coached over close to 200 leaders, and I've trained over 8,000 individuals on a national and international level. I also sit on the International Coaching Federation Board of Directors for the Michigan chapter, and I absolutely still love what I do. I'm a business owner, CWC Leadership Development. That CWC stands for Change Worth Cultivating.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little story behind that, Tati. There was a time where
I don't know if I miss you. Please, guys, just let me know if you can still see Cathy, and she's still there.
Am I frozen in time?
You frozen a little bit, but you came
Okay.
back. What is
Okay.
important? Yeah.
So I changed the CWC to change worth cultivate. So that's a little bit about me. That's a little bit about what I do. And I loved hearing about how our relationship started. Thank you for that.
No, yeah, and I love that you initiated our conversation just telling people that when you introduce yourself, you are speaking much more about you than just a job title. Because people
Yes,
sometimes are so connected with a job title, but we are not a job title. We are in that job title for a while, but we got to know who we are, indeed, in fact. So to
absolutely.
let people know a little bit more how is to be something instead of have something. What is emotional intelligence? Because I feel that it's completely connected with being able to tell people who you are without a job title.
Absolutely. So, emotional intelligence, that's my passion.
Yes.
And so I always talk about how emotional intelligence, there's four quadrants. And the first quadrant is self awareness,
Hmm.
and then self management. And then because you're aware of yourself and able to manage yourself, then there's awareness of others, and then managing the social setting. So those are the four quadrants:
Hmm.
self awareness, self management, then awareness of others, and then being able to take all of that knowledge that you've taken in and then manage the social setting, make good decisions so that you can have healthy, successful relationships. And it's the very key, the very essence of building a relationship with self, because the first thing you have to accomplish is that self awareness and self management piece. So that's all about the relationship with yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Katie, why people are talking so much about emotional intelligence? I was thinking that this is not just a fad, right? Why leaders and just ordinary people, people who are not necessarily leading all other people, needs to know more about emotional intelligence?
That's a great question, Tati. I always say we're all leaders. We're all leaders in our own lives. So no matter
Absolutely.
what our job title is, every day we have to make decisions. Every day we have to lead our own lives. And so when we think about emotional intelligence, it's really about developing a relationship with yourself, really having a good, healthy relationship with yourself. So, a lot of times in some of my workshops, or even when I'm coaching individuals, I'll ask people to describe their relationship with themselves. And a lot of people will say, I don't have a relationship with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Or some people will say, it's abusive or it's distant. Or some people will say, I'm getting to know myself. It could improve. One way I help people to have an idea of what that relationship with themselves is like is, what's the monologue in your head, the conversation you have with yourself on a regular basis? Do you consistently beat yourself down? Like when you make a mistake, do you call yourself names? Do you consistently beat yourself down?
Oops. I think you are frozen again. You are back. Okay. Go ahead.
Am I back? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So sometimes people will consistently beat themselves up. Or when you make a mistake, give yourself permission to be imperfect. So when you ask me, how can I still have butterflies? I do still have butterflies. And I always tell my husband, whoo, before every big event, whoo, I have butterflies. And he'll say, it's okay as long as they fly in formation. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've learned how to get those butterflies in formation.
Well, tell me more about it because I love the way you explain butterflies. And but first, before you tell everybody why you say since they flow information, they just fly information. Before, let
Mhm.
me just paraphrase what you said and um, and why I think emotional intelligence is so good, and why I think people need you to teach
Mhm.
them about it. Because we live in a world, sometimes people are not prepared to talk about feelings, especially
Yes.
in the professional environment. They just
Yes.
tend to ignore feelings because they
Mhm.
think they are maybe weak, or maybe someone else is not prepared to them to be completely transparent. So if you are
Right.
not in that environment in which you can be yourself, you can expose your feelings, is
Mhm.
there when you really have to have awareness and talk to yourself about everything that you just said. Just recognize that you are having some kind of feelings. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the interesting thing to note is, I recently did a seminar, and I asked the question, how many emotions can humans experience? Not at one time, but over a lifetime. How many emotions are there? And some people would say 100, some people would say 50. Humans can experience over 34,000 emotions over a period in their lifetime.
Oh my.
34,000 emotions. And the thing to remember about emotions, just because we don't acknowledge them, it doesn't mean they go away. Typically, people will repress their emotions, and those emotions have to get out some kind of way. And so sometimes we may have fits of anger, or sometimes we may not treat people as well as we'd like because we have all of these repressed emotions.
Yeah.
And then after they've been repressed for so long, they will show up as autoimmune disease or
Yes.
not feeling well.
Mm-hmm.
So those emotions, they're trying to send a message to you that something needs to happen. Either take care of myself, like if I'm burned out or stressed, I need to find out what's going on. And if I don't take care of myself, then my body will eventually turn against me and fight against me. And that's why we have so many autoimmune diseases, because the body
Oh
is
yeah.
fighting against you because you're not listening and taking care of the person you are inside.
Absolutely. I love this. And this explains so well why emotional intelligence is not something that HR wants us to learn. It's not something that we can far away, we can just fly away. We need to recognize that we have to have emotional intelligence. And I am just leaving the butterflies a little bit behind, because when you say we need to listen, this is why your book is called Just Listen. Why is that? Tell me about your book title. But first,
So
let me
it's
show you.
shh.
Tucker is here saying that, love that, no inner bullies.
Yes, no inner bullies. Yes,
Yes,
be kind to yourself.
yeah. But tell
So the
me.
reason, yeah, the reason I named the book Just Listen, Great Things Happen in the Silence, is because I feel like I met myself for the first time in the silence. And I didn't meet myself face to face till I was in my middle to late 30s. And I have to tell you, it was a process.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't always comfortable sitting in the silence. But once I learned how to sit in the silence, to meditate, to listen to myself, and use a journal to write down my emotions, I finally met the person I am today.
Yes.
And I've continued to work on myself through emotional intelligence and that self awareness, really knowing who I am as an individual, really listening to the emotions that rise. And it's interesting that our emotions come to us unbidden. We don't necessarily call them, they rise up and they want to deliver a message. And we have to just listen. Take the time to listen, to figure out what your internal self is trying to say so that you can be well and healthy mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. It's so important.
Katie, you sharing with me and with us about your journey on starting listening to yourself. This was when you met emotional intelligence as a skill, as something like that? It was because a need that you had?
Yes, this was before emotional intelligence, before I became a coach. So in my mid 30s, I went through a deep depression, and I also was diagnosed with lupus
Oh,
because I didn't know who I was. I wasn't listening to myself. My body attacked me because I wasn't addressing my emotional needs. And I even talk about it in my book. And finally, I went to therapy, know myself. I began to journal. I began to create time and space for me to meet myself face to face. And it's not always a pleasant meeting, it's a
yeah.
process. And over time, through emotional intelligence, as I began to train and learn about these things, I developed a very healthy relationship with myself where I absolutely love spending time with myself on a regular basis to make sure to tap in, to go beneath the surface of the emotions to find out what's at the core, what am I
Yes.
really feeling? And then what do I want to do with that emotion?
Love that. And you made me just want to share my experience with you as my coach, because you guys, I was telling you when I met Katie, and it was in November 10th, 2016. I will never forget this day because I had to do a speech to people to introduce myself in the middle of everybody that I didn't know. And as I told you, living here for 1 month. And when the event ended, Katie just approached me and said, "Would you be willing to be my coach?" And then one thing that happened, it was then, I think for over a year, right, Katie? We
Yeah.
met, and then I was her coach, but she was my coach in many things. And why I am sharing this experience? Because you taught me to listen myself, because you remember very well that I was struggling with my communication back there. I was
Mhm.
having a lot of fears, and I was completely self-beated with my English. And I was a coach and a facilitator, having to use my communication all the time. This is what you do, right? We are
Mhm.
communicating all the time. And you
Mhm.
help me to just listen my inner bullies, the way Tucker just mentioned here, and start to understanding that I had much more to listen than just this bad thinking inside of me. So guys, I really recommend you to read Shh, Just Listen, because Katie go over a lot of feelings here, mixing with a lot of your experiences. So
Mhm.
if you don't mind, I want to start sharing with people here one of the first feelings that you wrote in your book: anger. And the
Yes.
one thing that caught my attention when I was reading your book was, you say in the first page here, you just wrote this: "It's time for our first 15-minute break. And during that time, I check my email. What a mistake. I received an email from a client that really made my blood boil. And this was so, so deep inside me, because I always tell people that they please never read an email if you are in a meeting room, if you are going to something important. Tell us what happened here, and what kind
Yes.
of tip can you give to people to just take care of their anger? Tell me this story, Katie. It's
So,
amazing.
yes, I will. So, great tip how not to check your email when you're in the middle of facilitating or in a meeting, because it can totally alter your mood. And so this client was accusing me of an issue that I felt like attacked my integrity. And so I knew that I wanted to have a conversation with her.
Okay.
And so I went on to schedule time to meet with her via Zoom, face to face, because she was out of state. But the thing with anger, when a person is angry, that means someone has crossed their boundary. And typically, what needs to happen is they need to have crucial conversation with them to let them know you've crossed a boundary and this is what I need to reestablish the boundary. So she attacked my integrity, and that was the boundary she crossed.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted an apology, a formal apology, because she had copied other people on the email. And so a lot of times when we're hurt or when we're angry, because anger is typically the first emotion we'll feel, and we're more comfortable with anger because society accepts anger as an emotion that kind of supports being strong.
Yeah.
But underneath the anger, if we go deeper and we spend time in the silence, we'll find out that under that anger is really hurt. And very rare do we approach someone and say, "You hurt me."
Oh, yeah.
But really, that's the authentic truth. But we'll go with the anger because it gives us a sense of strength. But when I eventually had the conversation with this individual, I did tell her, I said, "You hurt me. I thought we had a relationship together. You attacked my integrity, and this is what I'm looking for." And she apologized profusely. We still work together today, and we're still in a healthy relationship. So the anger, and typically we're not taught how to deal with anger. And the thing to remember about emotions, they aren't good or bad, they just are.
Mm-hmm.
It's what we choose to do with that determines the value
Absolutely.
of the emotions.
Yes. Thank you for explaining this way because I never thought this way. I never thought that some feelings are more acceptable by society. So anger is one of those that you are so right. People just look at it and say, "Oh, you are so strong. You are feeling
Yes.
anger." But at the end of the day, anger is it's triggered by something else. So I
Yeah.
love that you said just you have permission to assess yourself. Some people are not comfortable sharing with others, but the way I understand, please correct me if I am wrong, but the way I understand is maybe I am not comfortable telling someone that I am feeling hurt, but at least I have to access inside of me to find my way to handle with this feeling. It makes sense? It is correct?
That is true. And so the next part about it is, so let's say we're angry and we recognize we spend time to find out that way down below we're hurt. Now we get to decide what to do with that emotion instead of repressing it and letting it rule us.
Mm-hmm.
So now discover that you're hurt. You want to have a conversation. You don't necessarily have to come out and say you're hurt and say disappointed or I'm upset
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like my integrity was attacked.
This is
So
perfect.
if you're not comfortable with the word, the feeling, or the emotion of hurt, you can say disappointed.
Yes.
But the goal is to find out what's beneath for you and then make a decision as to what you want to do with the emotion. And so when we do that, we're able to respond to our emotions instead of reacting to our emotions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the value.
Yes, and we are able to make decisions like rational decisions based on feelings. When we gain awareness, we can decide it. And I think everyone, I don't know if people agree with me, everybody in this world just want to possess, to have control on themselves. It's like people are afraid to just be, flying on the wind because they are feeling some
They
things.
want, yes. A lot of people are afraid to express how they feel. It's the V word. I write about it in my book, vulnerability. And a lot of
Yes.
people are afraid of being vulnerable. And the emotional intelligence piece, having that self awareness and self management, then you can be aware of others and in the social setting, knowing when it's appropriate to be vulnerable. Because vulnerability means I'm going to share a piece of my heart with you. And I'm hoping that you will hold and take care of it and respect it. But the emotional intelligence piece looking at the social setting, being aware of the person that you're speaking with. Is it appropriate? And has that person earned the trust to hold your heart, to
Oh,
be
yes.
vulnerable with that individual? And even with that, sometimes you'll have to test it out, give them a small piece of your heart that you know you
Yeah.
can recover and heal, and see what they do with it. But
Yes.
when we're vulnerable, it opens the door for others to be vulnerable. And then that is the beginning of authentic relationships.
I love that you mentioned the word vulnerability because last week I had Ronaldo Ramos. We had an interview in Portuguese, and he was
Mhm.
speaking exactly about why CEOs should give it a chance to vulnerability. And you are touching this point. And because we are talking about anger, I want to bring another feeling that I have, another emotion that I have in your book that I think a lot of people are feeling right now, so maybe you can give us a lot of tips on how to handle it.
Okay.
Anguish.
Ah,
This is
English.
so, I love it. It's in your book, page 7. Guys, you gotta buy this book and read it because
Mhm.
there's a lot of nice experiences here. Just tell me about anguish. Why gaining awareness about this emotion? It's so important right now.
So I'll share briefly the story I share in the book and how I had to sit with myself to name that emotion. I was actually traveling on a business trip and away from my family. I was in, I believe, Tennessee, and I was going to teach a class the next day, an 8-hour class. And one thing that I like to do whenever I get to the city that I'm going to be in, I'd like to take myself out to a nice meal. It's
Okay.
part of my self care thing. And I sit down at a restaurant to have one of my favorite meals, and I get a call from my daughter. And my daughter is crying in the phone and screaming. Now, she was 32 at the time.
Okay.
Um, and I kept telling her, calm down, tell me what's wrong. And she shared with me that her husband had committed suicide in their garage, and she found him. And so here I am away from my daughter. I can't comfort her. I
My
can't get a
gosh.
flight back. I try to get a flight back. I rush home or back to the hotel and try to get a flight back. I can't. I call my husband and I tell him, I'm going to drive home. And he says, no, I don't want you driving home with this hanging over your head. So I'm still trying to get a flight. I can't get a flight back. So that entire night, much prayer, journaling, meditation, I came to the emotion of anguish. I felt like being choked internally. I was in so much pain because I wanted to be with my daughter. Somehow I went to sleep that night and I got up and facilitated an 8-hour
Okay.
class. I did. And near the end of the class, the last activity is 12 men in a class, and they have to sit in a circle and answer the question, where did you grow up? Two questions. Where did you grow up? And what was your greatest, your biggest childhood challenge? And to hear those 12 men share their story was actually an answer to my prayers because some of them had grown up without a father. Some of them had been abandoned by both parents. Some of them grew up hungry all the time. And as they were sharing their stories, these 12 men were sitting in a circle, crying and comforting one another. And yet they had survived their childhood challenge. And watching them, I knew my grandsons, 3 of them, would be okay.
Would be okay.
Yeah. So that anguish, I was able to manage that emotion, tap into resilience, facilitate this class, and receive the answer to my prayer. And afterwards, I rushed back to the airport, caught my flight home, and was able to be with my daughter that following night. But that was definitely a time of anguish for me.
This is absolutely, oh my gosh, this is so, so strong. And thank you for sharing it. And I know you have in your book too, but hearing from your mouth, it makes it even stronger. So we know that
Thank
a lot
you.
of people are feeling anguish right now because of the whole situation in this world.
Yes.
So how can
Yes.
they access this feeling deep, deep in a deep way that they can find maybe resilience inside of them the way you did?
So great question, Tati. My suggestion would be is to really spend time with the emotion, because unless you address it, it's not going to go away. You can repress it, it'll bubble up. But really take time and sit down with a journal. The first thing you can do is validate that emotion. You have every right to feel this way. Our lives have been changed forever, I feel. We may get back to a new norm, but very different now. So you have every right to feel anguish. Validate your emotions, because once we validate our emotions, the intensity of the emotions will lessen.
Mm-hmm.
So validate the emotion and then ask a series of questions. What is it's causing me anguish? Is it I can't move about and see my friends and family? That I'm spending a lot of time at home away from people. For me, it's my 89-year-old dad who lives alone, and he's been alone for 6 months. We periodically go visit and try to help him and make sure he has meals, but it's breaking my heart to know that
Yeah.
he's alone most of the day. That's hard, very difficult for me. It saddens me. And now I get to say, well, what do I want to do with that emotion? So if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling anguish, it's okay. Validate it. And then discover the reasons why you're feeling it. Because maybe if you're hungry to be with other people, maybe do Zoom calls or
Yes.
teleconferencing or write letters. That can be very therapeutic. But you have to figure out what's driving the emotion, and then you can decide what you want to do with it.
I think your tip is perfect, and it's going to fit a lot of people who are just watching us right now, and it's going to watch us
Mhm.
um, after we finish the live streaming, because I
Mhm.
think people sometimes they know there is something going on, but they don't validate, they don't look deep deep inside and say the way you said it's okay. Now what I'm going to do with it, what I'm going to
Yes.
decide to do with it, it's
Yes.
amazing. And thank you for sharing. I know
Yes.
that you are a very family oriented woman. I know you
Yes.
do a lot of rituals with your grandsons and your
Yes.
grandbabies. I know them.
Yes.
You have a
Yes.
beautiful family, and
Thank you.
bringing this,
So, yeah. So, my husband and I, we just celebrated our 37th wedding
I
anniversary.
saw it. Yes,
Yeah. Yep. And we
congratulations.
have 8 grandchildren and 3 children. So, yes, family is a large part of my life. And
I know
so,
that.
I used to get my grandsons every Friday night, my grandchildren, and they would spend the night. I haven't done that in a long time. That hurts. That's painful. So
Yeah.
I'm reaching out to them in other ways. And then I even have a 15-year-old grandson, and I coached him, and he absolutely loved it. And we bought his first journal off of Amazon, and he's begun journaling.
Wow. I
Yeah.
love it. And this made me just think about better emotions, like lighter emotions. But before I ask you about one emotion that I think you are going to tell us a very nice story, let me just bring Lordelo a comment here. He was an interviewee with me a few weeks ago, and he said, indeed, emotional intelligence can lead us on the path to a fulfilled and happy life. Absolutely,
Absolutely.
indeed.
I wholeheartedly agree.
What a story. Whoa, he said. So, since we are smiling again and we share with people your amazing stories and your family, I can read in your book too. In the page, let me just find here because now I'm having a lot of excitement and good emotions here. In the page 63, you tell us one story on ecstasy, and before you just decide to not to tell people, guys, I gotta tell you, this girl here, she's a singer, And I want you to just tell people what ecstasy means to you in your book and how can people access ecstasy in their lives.
Okay. So thank you for that, Tati. So I start this chapter off in my book by saying, why has ecstasy been confined to the bedroom? And so that's not the only space that you can find ecstasy. A lot of times there are other things in life that will take us to that place if we're fully present, if we're in tune to what we're experiencing. So I write about the opportunity. So I've been taking singing lessons for 6 years. And I always say I've never worked so hard at something just to be mediocre. I feel like I feel like most things that I engage myself in, I'm pretty good at it. And so this was about 3 years in, and I have a vocal coach who's very direct, and he's always saying, "Did you do that? Are you practicing? That doesn't sound good. Start over." So I'll never forget the one coaching session, vocal coaching session I had, and I'm singing Whitney Houston, "I Believe in You and Me." And I'm singing the song, and normally he'll stop me and he'll say, "Go back." And I'm singing the song, and he's playing the guitar, and someone's playing the piano and the drum, and I'm making it through. I'm going further and further. And all of a sudden, I hit this high note. And for the first time, I fell in love with my voice.
Oh,
You know how sometimes you'll hear yourself in the microphone and you go, "Who's that?"
I know.
I fell in love with my voice for the first time, and I felt my body for the first time become a human instrument. And that was sheer ecstasy. To hear this voice, this God given voice, into an after years of training was a moment of sheer ecstasy. And I'll never forget that moment. It was absolutely amazing.
I think, if I am not wrong, I think you shared when this happened, because I think I have been just being with you during this time because we know each other for 4 years. And
Mhm.
I remember very clearly every time that you were not satisfied with yourself and you were just saying, no, 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 I'm just singing, but I am not a singer. And then in some point, I just felt that you were completely okay and completely like just recognizing that you are a singer. Indeed, you are a
Yes.
singer.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I imagine the ecstasy coming over there and how people can recognize. And when I talk about good feelings, feelings that made brings joy to us, I want to
Mhm.
ask people, how can you repeat it? So how can people keep repeating the feelings that brings joy to them?
So it's 6 years in me taking singing lessons, right? And so it's not that I'm going to go to America's Got Talent. I
I will vote
thoroughly
for you for sure.
I thoroughly love the process. I love singing. I can remember the first time I sang with a live band, I was so intimidated. And now when the live band kicks in, I'm like, yeah. So when you find something that brings you ecstasy or makes you happy, you repeat that process. And also find other things. Like I enjoy spending time in nature. And so in the summer months, I'm either in my backyard in my flower garden or I will go to the park. And so I love creating environments for myself that make me happy, that meet my needs mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. But you have to spend time with yourself to know what fills you up in those different ways so that you can repeat the cycle. So I found a new, so I do the keto lifestyle. So I found a new drink at Starbucks that I can have that's keto friendly. And every time I go to Starbucks and get this little drink, this Frappuccino, I absolutely loves it. I love it. It makes me happy. And so I repeat those things that bring joy, that make me happy.
Oh
Because
yes.
sometimes there's so many things that happen in life we can't control. But if we're intentional and know what makes us happy, know what brings us ecstasy, then we try to repeat those things.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing it. And this makes me think that you are on one of the best people that I know that are good in self-awareness. And because I follow you everywhere, we are friends. And I
Mhm.
know when you post on your social media. And you guys, if you don't follow this girl here, just start following her because she gives us a boost of positivity and energy every time that I just see you on social media. So I'm saying that because sometimes you post pictures of yourself working in a park, working in your, I don't know if it's your balcony over there, a place that you sit
Yes.
outside your house. And
Yes.
this brings me joy because I know that you found a way that can repeat exactly what you said, the good feelings that come from inside of you. So it's
Yes.
never too late to people start to assessing these little things that made brings joy to them, isn't it?
Yes.
What can you tell them? What can
It's
you
never
tell?
too late. It's never too late. So, one thing that I have done with my book is I have written about 30 different emotions, and I walk through the four stages of emotional intelligence. So, I write about when I experienced the emotion, how did I manage that
Hmm.
emotion, how did I manage myself, how did I manage the relationship or the social setting, and then how did I manage the setting. And then what was the lesson that I learned from this emotion? Then I give the reader an opportunity to write, when did you experience this emotion? How did you manage the emotion? How did you manage the social setting and the relationship? And what were the lessons learned from experiencing this emotion? And so the more you tap into those emotions, give yourself time and space, create the time and the space to be able to explore those emotions will really help you to have a greater self awareness.
I love that you used your books not just to tell your stories that are amazing, but also to give some guide to people on how to access. You guys, if you
Yeah.
want to have a caddy facilitating or just giving you a workshop in your company for yourself and you are in the US, it's perfect. Just call her. But if you can't, if you are in Brazil, for example, I have a lot of people who are in Brazil. Just I'm going to try to show because I have a green screen, but I think people can see it.
Mhm.
Shh. Just listen. Great things happen in the silence. Go to
Yes.
Amazon. Amazon is the best place, Katie, to buy a
Amazon is
book.
the best place, and it's also on the Kindle version as well.
Oh, perfect. So here in all those pages, the way Katie just said, she go over the four quadrants and teach you on how to access. So it can be your book that you can just exercise every single day. So we
Yes.
are ending our conversation. It went so fast.
It did. My
Yes,
goodness.
yes. So tell me, what else can you tell people in regards emotional intelligence? If you could give a message to people, and what could you say?
The message I would share with individuals is based on the principle to love your neighbor as you love yourself. A lot of times we take better care of other individuals than we do ourselves. So I guarantee you, if you take the time and spend the time getting to know who you are, listening to your emotions, and really deciding what do you want to do with so that you can have a healthy relationship with yourself. Once you do that, you will continue to give to other individuals, but you will experience the happiness. There's more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. You'll experience that happiness of giving. And we think about back in the day when we could fly, and they always tell you if the oxygen mask drops down,
Oh, yes.
you should put it on first before you help others. It's the same with emotional intelligence. Create the time and the space to get to know who you are and create a loving, healthy relationship with yourself so that you can do that for others.
Absolutely, absolutely. You could not say even better what you just said and explain to people because I used to tell people that I know, my girlfriends and my friends, that some people are use it to say, "Oh, I do everything for others," and I don't know if there's beauty on it because it's like your, let's say you are a car, and if you don't pump fuel in your car, you are going to die. You are going to not have
Yes.
energy to go anywhere. So take care
Yes.
of yourself. And
Yes.
Cathy,
Yes.
I am so honored to have you as my friend, to have you in my
Same here,
life.
Tati.
And I hope people enjoyed a lot the way I enjoy talking to you every time. Just stay
Hmm.
here with me. I am going to introduce the next interviewee for the next week. But for now, thank you, thank you, thank you very much. I'm very grateful for you. Thank you. See you soon. See you soon. Bear with
See you
me.
soon.
So, guys, if you are a Portuguese speaker, just wait. I am going to introduce you my next week interviewee. If you are English speaker, thank you very much for being here with me today. If you are not able to understand my Portuguese interviews, please, you can see here, just go to my channel and subscribe to it, because when I achieve 1,000 followers, I'm going to be able to have uh, translations, subtitles on live and real time. So it's going to be very good for people who just speak Portuguese to understand, for example, this amazing Cathy Mott that just gave a lot of knowledge to us, and vice versa. Thank you for being here with me today, and share, subscribe to my channel. Oi, gente, semana que vem, vocês estão vendo aqui, ó, eu vou ter comigo Diego Santos, que ele é Head de Inovação e Tecnologia. E hoje a gente estava tentando colocar lá um nome para nossa live. Então, o que eu quero dizer para vocês é que Diego e eu vamos falar sobre empreendedorismo e tecnologia, tudo misturado, em português e direto aqui do YouTube. Além disso, vocês podem ver aqui, ó, o logo do Intalks. A partir do dia 31 de agosto, eu vou intercalar o Tati Talk com o Intalks. O Intalks vai falar exclusivamente de Fair Trade e vai sair live lá do LinkedIn, mas também do YouTube. Então, se você não tem uma conta do LinkedIn, não se preocupe, ele vai live aqui também no YouTube. Só para você ficar tranquilo e tranquila, eu vou estar aqui toda segunda-feira, seja com Tati Talk, seja com Intalks, sempre batendo um papo super gostoso com vocês. Muito obrigada, vejo vocês semana que vem, 8 da noite do Brasil, 7 da noite aqui de Michigan. Thank you very much, you guys. See you next Monday with Diego, 8 p.m. Brazil, 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Tchau, gente. Boa noite.